Morning, everybody. Jim Gonzalez here at EDI Support LLC. So it's another Wednesday. It's actually sunny outside. It's nice and warm here in Pennsylvania. It's going to get even warmer because it's going to be in the 90s. But so I'm hoping it's nice and enjoyable for you out there. What we want to talk about today is we're going to talk about guidance on effortless EDI document exchange. And what that means is there's a lot of things that factor in to doing EDI. The people don't associate all of the different things that need to be done for EDI processing to happen. You know, there's common mistakes, there's things that are overstepped, things not thought about. You know, there's main steps that you need to go through for sending and exchanging EDI documents with your trading partners. It's not always just a click and send. So you have to think about what are those main things, and there's three of them, three main things for sending those EDI documents. The biggest thing is, of course, data. What does that mean? So you have to be prepared for sending EDI documents. So if it's one of those old sayings of bad data in, bad data out, so your data collection. What are your rules internally for collecting the information? So item numbers, unit of measures, terms, the various things that are comprised in that EDI document that you want to send out. You have to think about, where do you have it? How do you have it contained? Is it in one centralized spot? Is it in multiple spots? The data means a lot. A lot of times what people get wrong is not the EDI format, it's the data. So the data that you're sending out isn't meeting the guides or the guidelines that were set up for how two companies are going to interact with each other. And that leads into, so data collection. So where do you get the information? Who's gathering the information? Who's doing all of those details and putting those things together? As an EDI professional, I can tell you, here's what's required in these EDI documents, and I can give you a full breakdown list of the data that's going to be exchanged, but it's your job or your client's job to know where the data is contained, who's going to be updating it on their side, who's going to make sure that the information on the invoice is entered correctly, who's going to make sure that the information on the claims is going to be entered correctly, all of those things. So you're looking at who's the data collection, who handles the data mapping. Now, as an EDI professional, I'm going to do that, you know, the converting of the data into an EDI format and send that information out. And that's a part of this too. But again, we need to have correct data. You also need to have the right and proper EDI translation software. So whether that's an on-prem software, in the cloud software, whatever it may be, it has to be able to meet the requirements that a trading partner is setting forth, and put that data into a format that's required and needed for your trading partner's system to be able to read it and understand it and decipher it and all of those things. So when you're thinking about what am I doing and what's all involved with preparing my EDI documents, we have to look at it from not only a data standpoint, we have to look at it in an EDI mapping standpoint, and we also have to look at it as our translation software. Another piece that we're going to be looking at is, how are we going to exchange these documents? How are you sending them? How are you receiving them? Are you using what protocols? So AS2, FTP, SFTP, a VAN, otherwise known as an EDI mailbox. The data has to be able to flow back and forth from your system to their system, from their system to your system, in order for EDI to occur. So exchanging of those documents and exchanging of the data, how are you going to get it? Who's going to be involved from that standpoint? From your standpoint, you might have a network admin that's involved. You may have an outsourced individual company that's involved that handles your IT infrastructure to make sure that IP addresses are whitelisted so that they can be allowed and accepted. Or, you know, so you have to go through and think about all of those pieces. And does your EDI translation tool also have what's called a managed file transfer, or an MFT? Does it have capabilities of sending the documents? Or is that a different company with a different piece of software that you're utilizing for that. Again, you can figure that out. We're here to help you. We'll answer questions and we'll help guide you if you're looking for a full compass package or you're looking for handling it. So step one, preparing your EDI documents. Step two is transmitting those EDI documents. Who's going to transmit is the communication protocol, the setup and the configuration, how are you sending and receiving the documents, and the tracking and acknowledgement of those different documents. Some systems have archiving availabilities. Some do not. So you might have a trading partner that says, hey, I never got this document and I'm going to send you a chargeback. Well, you might say, hey, I have this archived and I can see in my logs that, yes, we did deliver it. And your system actually, Mr. Trading Partner or Miss Trading Partner, has acknowledged it. So I want to dispute that chargeback. Can your system do that? Do you have reporting capabilities to do that? So how are we going to get the documents back and forth? Comprises of some different things of tracking, acknowledging, being able to send and package the documents appropriately with the necessary addressing and routing information. That's also referred to as the ISA, GS, and ST, or enveloping structure. There's a lot of different things that are coming up part of this, but again, if you break it down and you look at what are you doing to make this successful, we have to think about what are these pieces that are in to do the actual exchanging of documents, to doing things to make it effortless. And by effortless is where if you need, you can lay on my team and my team will help guide you along those things. But you're also looking at processing the EDI documents from the trading partner. So step one is making sure our data is correct. So we have to prepare our EDI documents. Step two, we have to look at how are we going to exchange or how are we going to send those in communication. And step three is processing the EDI documents from our trading partners or by the receiver. So again, we're looking at receipt, acknowledgement, EDI translation, data integration. So now, are we integrated on a back-end system? NetSuite, Acumatica, Great Plains. Doesn't really matter what it is, SAP. There's a whole litany of different systems that are out there, and it doesn't really matter the industry. Is how are you, once you receive the data, are we going to archive it? Are we going to send an email out to somebody? Are we going to process it in? Are we going to do all of those things? What are we doing with the data? Inside of the document, I can give you, and I've told a lot of clients this, we can tell you all day long what data is in there, but I don't necessarily know what data you're looking for. So some clients know what data they're looking for. So when they receive a purchase order, they're like, oh, well, I need this out of the purchase order. It needs to go here. We're a part of figuring all of those things out. So you may even have a standalone web EDI because you're just getting into EDI and you're like, hey, I just need down and dirty, get it done. I just need to receive a purchase order, be able to print it off. That's fine. But you have to understand what that process is. What are you doing with that data? Once we get it to you through communication and it's sitting there in a platform, what are you doing with it? Where are you going with it? How are you going to acknowledge? What are you going to translate? Is there going to be any integrations? What if there's an exception to the rule? How are we going to handle that? If there's an error during validation, how are we going to handle that? There's a lot of pieces that go along or subsections to those three main points, but each of them is reliant on you and working with a partner or an individual that knows EDI processing to help you be successful, to help you make EDI effortless. It's really coming across and knowing how to avoid those common mistakes and how to quickly rectify those common mistakes. So a lot of, number one in my book, number one is incorrect data mapping, incorrect data, those type of things. People don't keep the system fully up to date, or they don't communicate with the other individuals that are working on the system, that are interacting with the EDI processor, so that they know how things are being updated, whether it's a new ship to address, whether they're selling new products, whether it's a new patient. All of those things, you have to put in rules or efforts to communicate amongst the team. So people in larger organizations, they have true dedicated EDI people that are, monitoring the systems, making sure of all of those things. But they're almost often, at least what I've seen, they're almost often an island. And sales sometimes talks to them, sometimes not. Sometimes, hey, we're getting a new account. The EDI department finds out literally the day of, or in a scramble mode. You have to keep everybody involved when you're doing EDI so that everybody knows what you are looking to do, where you're looking to grow to, how many accounts you're looking to bring on this year. All of those things, because if the EDI staff and personnel doesn't know those things and we're chasing after the fact, it's going to be a problem. If we don't know who is the account rep, who is the individual that can give us all of these pieces of information of what was worked out with that buyer or what was worked out with these different insurance companies, all of those things, if we don't know those things, you can't assume, nobody in the company can assume EDI is miraculously going to work without any issues. You also have to know, one of the big things is validation. Looking at an order, again, order to cash makes up a big process for a lot of people in retail. So that's why I tend to lean towards that. So validation. Are these items valid or are they discontinued? Is this trading partner allowed to actually purchase these items? Because if we're sending a whole catalog of items numbers and all of a sudden they're ordering items that are discontinued, we need to let the trading partner know that so that they're not sending that through. It gets onto a purchase order, and then that purchase order gets onto a sales order, and that sales order goes to the warehouse automatically. What's happening? We're now selling or trying to sell items that we either don't have in the warehouse, maybe already have allocated to a liquidation sale, whatever it may be, but we have to be able to validate, stop that sales order from being created. Stop when there's a credit limit or a credit hold. Do those type of things that typically either the ERP would do, or if you can't rely on the ERP and you had humans doing it, we want to pull that human interaction out. Let's set up those guidelines, let's set up those rules, let's set up those validations to make sure that EDI is helping to stop sales orders from being created, or at least notifying us, hey, sales order number blah, 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 blah was created and it should be put on a credit hold because of XYZ. Think about that. So you want to make it effortless. You also want to put in those features and those functions to validate, to check on, transmission of documents, to check on receiving of documents. So there's also inadequate error handling. People like to be reactive with error handling and not proactive. And what I mean by proactive is this. You can set up automated reports. Most EDI systems and platforms, you can set up automated reports that get emailed out to individuals. You can also have it set up that it, reaches out via Slack or whatever type of communication software you're utilizing. And it'll give you, hey, this happened. You need to look into this. Instead of you send the data or you process the data and you wait for somebody to send you an email and say, hey, we're charging you because you forgot this piece of information. Or, hey, we didn't get these documents because they erred on the AS2 communication or the SFTP upload. You want your system checking those things, sending out notifications to a distribution group so that if somebody's out sick, you don't have to worry about the backup forgetting to check things on a scheduled basis. We're human. We forget things. I do it all the time. So you want to make sure that any type of error handling, any of those type of things are taken care of. Another thing that people mistaken is ignoring acknowledgments. Sometimes those little simple 997s that come back from every document may have an error and may indicate that an error happened. Or you didn't even get a 997 or an acknowledgement of your EDI transmission. Well, if you didn't, that's a problem. But a lot of people don't monitor that. So they're not looking at what's going on, because those are now, again, you're being proactive instead of reactive. You're trying to fix and correct things before your trading partner notifies you. Hey, if your trading partner says, we never got these invoices, that's cash. That's money. And if you have 30-day terms and they don't notify you for 2 weeks, well, guess what? They're going to base the terms most likely off of when they receive those 810s or invoices, and they can process them. So now you just added 2 more weeks into your cash flow. So when you get that cash is up to you. Again, poor data quality. See a lot of people doing that. They're not going through and they're not regularly cleaning out poor information, wrong information, adding in information, doing those types of things. When you're not doing those types of things, you are going to cause yourself issues. Because again, it's that whole rule of thumb, bad data in, bad data out. So if you're receiving in bad data, and you're going to be sending out bad data unless you catch it through some type of notification. Insecure transmission methods. So what I mean by insecure transmission methods, most of the time when you're sending data, most clients will not want the data using FTP. So FTP is not as secure or nearly as secure as SFTP. So those protocols start to fall off to the wayside when it comes to transmissions of EDI documents. AS2, again, is very secure because you have certificates involved and all of those things, AS2 IDs, MDNs. There's a lot of things that are going to get involved with that. My thing that I tell everybody, no matter what, AS2 or SFTP, those are typically the 2 protocols that I will tell people when they ask me, which one should we utilize? Again, it's up to you which one you prefer. I'm okay with SFTP. SFTP actually makes it a little bit easier on configuration, setups, maintenancing, all of those things. If you want to make it more secure, AS2, of course, because AS2, you're constantly going to be updating certificates. Maybe the AS2 ID changes, maybe your EDI qualifier and ID even change, all of those things. There's a lot of different things that fall into there. Another piece that people seem to mess up with is inadequate testing. So I always tell people when you're doing EDI, you want to test out all the scenarios that you can think that you're going to go through. And the high level is, okay, are you shipping bulk? Are you drop ship, which means you're selling direct to customer? Which methods are you doing? Are you doing cartons, pallets? Making sure that you're testing out those different configurations, those different processes that you're like, oh, well, we only do that 5 times a month. Well, if you only do that 5 times a month, you should still test it out because you want to make sure that your EDI system is handling those things. So you want to go through, you want to handle it, you want to look at it. That's making sure you're going through adequate testing, making sure that you're seeing that everybody in your organization is giving you sign off, including outside your organization when you're dealing with your trading partners. Now, sometimes you're going to fall into weird testing scenarios that you're never going to deal with ever in your life because it's nowhere near what your business model is. Those get an exemption. When people put you through the generic tests, and we all know who puts you through the generic testing, you got to ask for exemptions because it's going to drive you nuts trying to make up for something that your business is never going to do. It's never set up for. That's just my thoughts, just the way that I handle things. So failure to monitor your system performance, making sure that your system's staying live, active, running, all of those things is another thing that can be an issue, along with non-compliance. with the EDI standards. So making sure that everything that you do is compliant with the EDI standards and the data dictionary, unless your trading partner wavers from those standards. And you will find that. It's the funny running rule that EDI has a standard, but it's not always followed. You want to make sure most of the times you're following those EDI standards, unless your trading partner is pushing you to do something that's against those EDI standards. So that comes down to your EDI system. Can your EDI system do those things too? And then last and least, not least, I shouldn't say, last on my list is lack of training and documentation. Document, SOP, standard operating procedures, making sure that you have everything covered so that if your individual or your group of individuals no longer are with your organization, you know what to do. You know how to interact. You know what their job details are throughout the day for handling EDI and processing EDI. So document. I should probably have that, or should have had that at the top. But my list is just a list that I put together. So training, documentation, going through and making sure that you have all of those things covered will help you out. That's really what I had for today. Like I said, I always like to try to keep things around 20 minutes. It's another wonderful Wednesday. Like I said, if you have any questions, reach out. Jim Gonzalez, EDI Support, LLC. You can reach us through either the Discord, which we have. All of the links are underneath in our comments. You can check us out on LinkedIn. You can also check us out on YouTube. Give us likes, thumbs up, follow everything, comments. Let me know other things that you want me to talk about. But that was trying to give you a highlight of those different things to make EDI effortless. So anyways, I hope you have a great Wednesday and a great rest of your week. And we'll catch back up when I have my next session. Take care, everybody.